Hello and welcome to the show. Mystery Goat and the Feral Monk back after a little hiatus and ready for a new episode for our second season on yoga. And today we're going to be talking about Pratayahara, which is the fifth limb in the Ashtanga 8 limbs of yoga. And we're focusing on Patanjali mostly this season. And Pratyahara comes after pranayama, which was the fourth limb we discussed last week, and the first 4 limbs, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Monk, deal more with like an external
Yeah, you could look at it
stuff,
that way.
and then like the next 4 are more like internal when you really go inward.
Yeah, you could look at it
You
like
could
that.
kind of look at it that way. I think I've
Yeah,
heard it
absolutely
explained
could.
like
Absolutely
that
could.
before.
Nothing
Um,
wrong with that.
but yeah, so the pranayama deals mostly with the breath, and then the pratyahara is dealing mostly with the senses and with the withdrawal of the senses. And there's basically 4 types of pratyahara. You've got the indriya, which deals with the senses, and prana, which is a withdrawal of like energy, um, and then karma pratyahara, which deals with action, and then mano pratyahara, which deals with withdrawing from the mind. So yeah, I think that this one is a pretty elusive limb to me, and I don't feel as well versed on it as much as some of the other ones that are more popular. So yeah, I'm gonna rely on you to carry the weight on this one, Mr. Monk. Um, what are some of the ways, I guess, you would practice pratyahara or implement it?
I think like the main thing is to not necessarily see it as too big. Like we can romanticize these things. We're doing Patanjali's Ashtanga yoga and sort of like get a little bit overboard in our fantasy about that, like adapting that to our identity and stuff. And it's actually one of the most simple of the limbs to kind of like understand, and at the same time it's still really difficult to actually do, right? Because it's a withdrawal, and I think, to be honest, we're probably, most of us are in like, can get like different degrees or grades or qualities of withdrawal, but absolute withdrawal from external stimulant is really difficult, you know.
Yeah,
But it's the process of the attempt is helping us to hone something, So we're coming off of those other limbs where we got to like the breath, and the breath sort of an interesting bridge, um, because it's going to help us, for example, with the mano pratyahara, with withdrawing from the mind, from its activities or whatever. Um, uh, so I think it comes more down to just simply understanding what you're trying to do, and use the tools that we've already talked about that you already have, using the concentration and the steadiness and all of that stuff that you've won yourself up to this point.
what do you think?
Practice.
Yeah, what do you think is the main benefit um, from withdrawing from the senses? Like, why would someone want to do that? Playing the devil's advocate.
Yeah. Um, well, if you're wanting to get to the other aspects, of the self that, we often hear them described as like the deeper self or the inner self or the whatever. It's just that which is most you. It's the thing about you that's most you. That really feels like you're moving from that place in you. So it's just the I am, instead of I am a man, or I am a school teacher, or I am a yoga practitioner. It's like cutting off all of those other things and just sort of being able to identify that deepest sense of beingness or consciousness or whatever. It's a lot of times these subjects get clouded by the amount of or the way in which these words are kind of thrown around.
Yeah.
You know, almost it almost seems like, at least sometimes, like there's an intention behind it to be vague, because it's mostly about seeming knowledgeable or seeming, you know, trying to impress someone in a certain way for whatever friendship benefits, or, you know, whatever the end selfish gain is, right?
Right.
And if your spiritual practice is moving in this yogic direction of like trying to identify that deeper self that isn't stained and caught up by all of that drama and misuse of free will and all the stuff that's happening karmically in the world to you in your daily life, and all the constant changes and all of those things. And so if you want to get to the fruits of meditation, you have to be able to withdraw from your fixation and your preoccupation with physical things. And so Pratyahara is like where you're moving from the breath, which was helping us develop some concentration and some presence. You know, and now you're taking that concentration and presence that's developed with the breath together, you know, and you're going to try to like, okay, can I focus going towards the deepest sense of being in myself instead of toward everything external to that I use for my entertainment and for my sense of self and all the games that I like to play, you know, as a personality in the world.
Right.
And so Pratyahara is very important for that, and it's why those 4 Pratyaharas are like a good guideline, you know, because otherwise you don't. A lot of people are very vague about this, so it's like withdraw what from what, you know.
Yeah.
What towards what, you know. It's always these kinds of questions that come up for us, and so like these 4 things that you're withdrawing, or practicing, or in the process of trying to learn how to withdraw from. And what are you withdrawing, right? You're withdrawing your attention. That's what we're really talking about. If we're going to be talking clear text, you're learning how to withdraw your attention from its from its fixation on these different types of external
Stimuli. Yeah.
And so Indriya, you're taking Indriya is just the senses. You know, it's like the 5 senses, like the 5 fingers on your hand, and has, you know, a little bit kind of with the number 5 to do. And it's withdrawing the senses. So it's withdrawing your attention on things like the burning sensation between your shoulder blades because of trying to sit still, or one of the neighbors cooking while you're trying to meditate, and you're getting this smell of, you know, whatever your favorite things are in your nose, or
Dogs barking when you're trying to do a podcast.
Barking when you're trying to do a podcast, or, you know, your significant other coming home and wanting to cuddle or be close, you know, all of those things that can be with your senses, like with music, with whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if I want to find out what that deepest part of my being is, I want to explore that. Well, I can't do that whenever I'm just constantly, my attention's like, okay, the barking dogs, or like, oh, that smells good, I'd like to eat something, we're gonna make, you know. So it's hard to get away from all of that. So you're practicing withdrawing your attention from those things, which doesn't mean that you're like trying to be like, you know, there's an actual yoga pose where you're covering your ears, your eyes, your nose.
I've seen this.
Yeah, and
like fold your ear flaps up.
Yeah, there's different ways to do it, and it's kind of like the modern asana well, I don't want to necessarily say that. It's maybe not as so true, but it feels a little bit like kind of like a you don't understand Pratayahara, so you came up with like an exercise that's kind of like Pratayahara, so that you can still like sell your yoga thing, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, because it's like a physical thing that they're doing
Yeah,
to
it's like
mask the external. It doesn't
yeah.
work.
Then you're just inside, and your mind's still going like, "Dude, I can't get in the air. What are we doing this for?" So
Yeah.
it's a lot, has a lot to do with like very superficial external show more than
Hmm.
like genuinely wanting to get down to it and be like, "Hey, I want to explore and derive benefit from what I'm doing and
Yeah.
develop
Yeah.
myself spiritually." And so you have indriya, so you're withdrawing the senses. Prana with like the energy thing is, that's one of those things too. Like talk about people's energy and their chakras and their meridians and nadis and all these different things. It doesn't really matter whether that's true or not. If you're interested in it, like go down it. We're for sure in next season going to go down some of these wilder things in the spiritual world. But think of it more like in the sense of like life force and energy. Like what would that mean practically? I mean like how you're doing, how you're feeling. Like today, are
Yeah.
you down? Are you like energized? Are you inspired or motivated or sad or whatever? So it has a lot to do with your feelings and like your state of feeling beingness. Like your state of like how you're feeling, how you're relating to the world at that time or whatever, that kind of situation. And so you're like, all right, well, I'm going to withdraw my attention away from that, like trying to manage all of that, with my mind. I'm going to also practice trying to not, come up with that stuff. And it's the same type of situation. I don't think I ended up explaining that before, but it's not like it's not trying to force blindness to the reality of being. It's just trying to learn how to refocus attention in the other direction towards the deepest part of being instead of towards the world. So if your senses come up, can you let it just float by like a cloud, or do you engage? And so withdrawing has to do with this disengagement. And so you're not going to withdraw or win this imaginary battle by trying to like actively control it.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, like
That
when I
ain't gonna
think
work.
of no, when I think of
That's
like the
terrible way to
karma.
sit.
Yeah, when I think of like the karma pratyahara, like the withdrawal of action, um, I don't, I think that it could easily be seen as just like, okay, just sit there and do nothing. But
Yeah.
I think more what it seems to be trying to mean is that, or imply, is that, the harder you try to grasp something, the harder,
Yeah.
the more likely it'll be to slip away from you.
Yeah.
So, you got to kind of have that.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, there's going to be like a revealing party where like you finally see that like the one that was doing all the practices and stuff was also the false ego, right? Like
Yes,
just pretending to be the real being and stuff like that. But at
exactly.
the stage that we're talking about right now, you're not at, the listener hasn't gotten to samadhi and understood that experientially for themselves on a deep level. It's
Yeah.
hearsay at the moment, and but pratyahara is a process that you can start if you want to go find out if that's really like that. I mean, just having an opinion on like, oh, it's true or it's not true, for me isn't that interesting.
No, no.
Like
It's a kind of like a
opinions
deepening of
abound.
awareness is what it seems to be, like an end
Yeah,
goal,
yeah, of course, of course.
you know?
But it's just that practice of like, what is the tool of awareness is attention. So it's like, all right, let's take the attention as a tool and stop, like a flashlight in the darkness, and stop like shining it on these things out there, and somehow magically being able to shine it into your inward state and be aware of that,
Right.
and yeah, and so karma, like you were saying, like removing yourself from action, it means like, okay, well, what are the different actions? What are the different actions a human being can, partake in? They can take in, they can go for walks or like engage in like chatty talk, or, these are all different, the action of speech, the action of body movement, the action of like eating and these types of things, or the mental actions, like the emotional actions and reactions. Like, so it's like saying, like, I'm going to try to also, during this time that I'm not, that I'm withdrawing from the senses, I'm going to try to not have mental actions and other things going on about this withdrawal, about this exercise that I'm doing, about, it's like, people want to get their mind quiet, but they talk to themselves about all the stuff that they're doing while they're doing it. Like you sit down to like do an exercise or whatever, and your mind is like sort of framing the story, or like, sort of playing it out almost like a cinema image or something like that, on like on the internal movie screen.
Yeah.
Like, we're this magical holy being sitting down to do this ancient practice of, and I can feel my energy rising through my chakras, and you can talk yourself into some wonderful things, but yeah, enjoy it as you want. Like I said, it all ends up at the same destination.
Scenic
Some
routes.
of them are scenic routes, and take a while, but offer up lessons just at a different like time scale than some other forms, and it's all good.
Right.
Thank goodness it's all good.
So what about prana pratyahara? How do you withdraw energy?
Yeah, so you withdraw your attention.
Withdraw your attention.
Fixation on how you're doing.
So that's what you were just talking about.
You know what I mean?
Okay,
like
I got
you're
you.
withdrawing it from this fixation of attention going out to like your moods and your mental states of like sadness and depression, or super excitedness, or whatever, whatever part of the spectrum that's expressing itself. It's just saying like, for the moment, my goal is to find the deepest part of my being. So that's not helping. So I'm gonna learn to leave it alone. I'm gonna try to develop the ability to leave it alone, how my energy levels are, how I feel today, how all that,
all the temporary fluctuation,
all that stuff, right? Because that's the definition of yoga according to Patanjali, is the cessation of fluctuations in consciousness.
That's it.
And so your energy states are fluctuations in consciousness that you perceive as experiences. Your senses are, your actions are, and your mind definitely is. And that's the mano pratyahara. And so what you're constantly doing is you're removing your attention from its like the flashlight analogy, what it's shining on,
from its focal point,
from its focal point or whatever, it's obsession or it's whatever. You're taking that and saying, all right, I'm going to use all of the power of that attention, that at the moment is quite fickle because I never developed it, and I'm going to learn how to develop it. So it's like, if I want my attention there, it's like, there, and it's really there. It's not like, trying to pay attention to that while like, thinking like, in an hour I have to cook lunch. The kids are coming back from school, and then I got to take the car to the, it's like, okay, it's one thing at a time. I'm cooking right now, I'm going to cook. I'm doing this right now, I'm going to do this.
Being present in the moment.
Being able to do that, and which will help it makes it easier than when you do have to multitask. Sometimes in life you do. It's also a skill that you should be good at, But if you sharpen your ability, your attention and your concentration, it'll make you better at multitasking too, because you'll be able to stay clear in your head and separate, whether it's two conversations or whatever it is, whatever the two tasks.
It'll help you concentrate a little bit better by like staying present.
Yeah. And so that's like towards the end of what Pratyahara is, like the beginning of going inside, but towards the end of Pratyahara, you're getting good at shining the light inside, like, okay, what's going on? Not my feelings, not mine, but where is this all coming from? Where's the well of my experience of being? you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
not where's it flowing to, like where's it coming from,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Let's see if I can find that, because, you know, I mean, in the end, one of the obvious things is oh, it's where I'm looking from, you know, because it's that one has to, like, it has to click in the right way, has to come at the right time. It's not, you know, you can't just tell somebody that and then they're like, even though a lot of people do that, and then afterwards they run off and they're like, oh no, I know how it works. Meanwhile, nothing changed, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed.
And so that leads us towards concentration. So now, okay, we've got attention,
Mm-hmm.
where we're under control, where we can kind of take it away from its fixation on certain external things, and now we're looking around inside, and like, all right, what's there? What is it? What's going on? What's this deeper being or whatever? And so now that starts to develop a concentration, and that concentration becomes at some point very one-pointed. You know, you've already been practicing it since the pranayama on your nose and
Mm-hmm.
everything. So now it's getting good. You know, now it's getting like strong.
Yeah.
You know, you're 4 years into your body transformation. You know,
Yeah.
you're doing 100 pull-ups now. You're not doing 4. You know,
Uh-huh. Right.
and so, you know, because it's like a muscle. You know, all of those skills are things that you train, and so yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
honing all that stuff,
dharana.
and it gets to one pointedness, and then you're in meditation, because that's what it is: one pointed, present attention on what is. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
if you're focused on this, you know, this group of wording, this what if you're trying to see the world for what it is, then you're also trying to see the I amness of the world, right? So best to start with your own I amness and figure that one out, because that's what we're talking about, is the ability to stay concentrated, clear, no perceptual filter, no conditioning filter on it, to see what's this actually about, what's going on, you know?
Yeah. Is there an unchanging awareness within us? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There is. So yeah, dharana is next.
Yeah, dharana would be the next one,
Concentration. Or the
concentration.
okay. All right.
And there's, you know, there's different ways to practice that, you know, just like there's different ways to practice other things. Main thing for pratyahara is that you understand that what you're withdrawing, you're not taking the senses with you inside. You're not taking the mind deeper inside. You're not withdrawing withdrawal of the mind. No, you're withdrawing your attention from the mind.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's the real point of pratyahara, is like,
Yeah.
what are you learning to do with your attention, so that you
Right.
can go into those deeper
Yeah, and
things. Because if you're gonna go into something subtle inside yourself, you know, you can't go in there with like some crude instrument.
well, that's what I was going to say, is that it's that subtlety, that subtle difference between, you know, the mind and the body, and you know, the duality, uh, and you know, what we talked about with Mr. Cassiano
Mm-hmm.
last season,
Mm-hmm.
the mind body soul connection,
Mm-hmm.
and then, you know, like I was just mentioning, the unchanging awareness is something that resides within, that, you know,
Oh, you can't get rid of it. You can try.
is free from all of that
Yeah.
external stuff, and it's always there for all of us, but we just like to pile things on. And
Yeah, we oversee it. We just oversee it. We
yeah,
like naturally oversee it,
and it's
because we've been practicing being a person your whole life,
yeah,
right? Been practicing being Matt, you know,
yeah,
Matt who went to school at where I went to school, and
yeah,
did what did, and, you know, whatever, you know,
identity.
the John the guitarist, and Paul the whoever, and you know,
Hmm.
I mean, even I think even the Beatles got sick of being Beatles, you know.
They did, yeah. I know John did for sure, and George. I think Paul would have gone on, but yeah, yeah. We'll have to do a season on the Beatles one day.
Yeah.
So fun. Well, thanks for joining me today, Mr. Monk. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Always fun.
And thanks to all the supporters and listeners and viewers out there. Make sure that you guys throw a like or subscribe if you can. Um, Definitely leave a comment for us in the chat box. We'd appreciate that. Let us know how you're doing out there. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Love one another. Mystery Go out.